Here we are, the run-in. That crucial stretch at the end of a season. That series of make or break moments that every title challenger must face and that every champion must overcome. Once again, Arsenal find themselves having earned the privilege of such a stressful position. But there are a couple differences between this time and last season. First of all, Mikel Arteta's men are up against not only Manchester City, but Liverpool as well, making for a dramatic three-horse race. And second, the Gunners are also competing in the latter stages of the Champions League, adding to the congestion of their fixture schedule. As a result, Arsenal will play 12 or 14 games between the previous international break and May 20th, with a 15th game if they reach the Champions League on June 1st. That means the Gunners will play a game roughly every 4.08 or 3.5 days. That's a lot of games packed into 7 weeks. And these aren't going to be strolls to 5-0 or 6-0 against relegation fodder. City away, Brighton away, 2 legs against Bayern Munich, an away North London derby, United away, potentially 2 legs against City or Real Madrid. There are a lot of immensely demanding games packed into this run-in. And at this point in the season, several key members of the Arsenal squad are feeling the effects of a long, grueling campaign. Bukayo Saka limped off the pitch when replaced by Gabriel Martinelli, has reportedly been dealing with an Achilles issue for much of the season, and was entirely spared from having to play against Luton in midweek. Martinelli himself just returned from timeout due to a foot injury. Standout defender Gabriel also has been managing an Achilles issue this season, and Ben White has played through a knee injury throughout this campaign as well. On top of that, stars like William Saliba, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard have all racked up over 3,000 minutes of game time so far this season. Look, I'm not a medical expert, and I'm not privy to the information that Arsenal's physio staff has. But as much as we'd all love to roll out Arsenal's strongest 11 over and over and over again during the next 7 weeks, that doesn't appear very feasible here. An ever-growing schedule is leading to more instances of fatigue and a higher rate of injuries among footballers. And, based on the information we do have, I'd say it's pretty unlikely that several crucial players have a dozen or so consecutive, high-intensity 90s in them over the next 7 weeks. So if Arsenal are to successfully navigate this run-in, if they are to lift at least one of the Premier League and Champions League trophies this season, Arteta will have to do something that he's historically struggled with over the course of his blossoming career. It's something that we arguably should have done during our title race last season, and that is rotate. The best way to think about this is with the help of what I call a positional depth pool. I said depth pool. I call it a depth pool and not a depth chart because I feel the pecking orders listed in depth charts ignore the opposition we're up against as well as the team balance affected by a particular player. Yes, some players are obviously generally more preferable, but most of the players in this Arsenal squad have qualities that make them very useful in situations that alternatives at the position might not be as effective in. In any event, Arsenal need to dip into these depth pools when they can. For instance, when Arsenal play against mid-table clubs like Everton or Manchester United who will aim to sit back, defend compactly, and hit us in transition, we can opt for Zinchenko at left back to help dictate play alongside Rice in midfield. But if we wanted to preserve Rice or move him up to left 8, we can slot in Partey or opt for Jorginho at 6 and play someone like Kivior or Timber, whenever he's back from his ACL injury, at left back instead. And if the opposition has a right-sided winger we're worried about, we can try to stifle them with Tomiyasu, like we've done against Salah with Liverpool and Doku with City. The left 8 position also presents several options as well. If we're not worried about Rice's workload, he's probably our best option there to play with Jorginho or a Zinchenko-Partey pivot. Or, if we're up against a deep block and feel we have the surrounding players to still physically compete and provide defensive solidity, Vieira and Smith Rowe are options there too. And if this is a game where we need to win those duels in midfield, Havertz can be deployed at left 8, although, as I've stated previously, he is not my favorite option at that position. Even at right wing, we have options if Saka isn't able to suit up. Jesus is comfortable on either wing and has shown an aptitude for the defensive work required in that position. Vieira is also an option there that Arteta has gone to in the past. Even Martinelli and Nelson can be comfortably deployed at right wing, although the manager seems reluctant to rely on the latter. Of course, it's all well and good to just say rotate and leave it at that. But like I mentioned before, this is going to be a very demanding run, and players like Saka, Saliba, Gabriel, Rice, and Odegaard simply aren't replicable in terms of what they can provide this team. And Arteta has notably come out and said that he expects players to take the pitch every 3 days. One way or another, they will have to play most of the minutes ahead. But they don't have to play all the minutes. In the more straightforward fixtures, it will be imperative for Arsenal to make their likely dominance count early on, so that our more crucial players can be pulled and rested with as much time to spare as possible. If the Gunners are 3-0 up against Everton with 65 minutes played, Saka should come off. If Arsenal somehow establish a sizable lead while hosting Bayern, Arteta should consider swapping Saliba for Tomiyasu to rest the Frenchman while still strongly defending their advantage.
No, absolutely not. I'm sick and tired of you bloody tacticos spouting this rubbish about how we should be starting weakened sides in the most important games of the season. I bloody won't stand for it.
No, I'm not saying anything like that, actually. That is not what I'm saying here.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, mate. You want to play the kids against flipping Bayern. That's what you're saying, mate. Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, would you like a pint of mediocre beer and a poorly cooked cut of meat?
Yeah.
Okay. Take a step back. Little more. Just one more step. Okay, now close the door. Perfect. And that's the last thing I want to emphasize here. I think a lot of people are scarred by previous seasons when it comes to the idea of relying on depth. We've seen players like Nuno Tavares, Mohamed Elneny, and Rob Holding be thrown in at the business end of the season and failed to make the desired impact. But this team has evolved so much since then. There are serious players outside of the established starting 11 who have top-level qualities to offer. Kivior, Trossard, and Zinchenko all will have a significant part to play. On top of that, Tomiyasu and Partey are returning to full fitness. Jesus is pushing to remind us what he can do. Timber can hopefully make it back before the end of the season as well. These are all talented players whom Arteta can rely on, either off the bench or rotating into the starting lineup. Again, ultimately, only the club knows better than anyone else how each player is doing fitness-wise. And of course, periodization is a thing. And they're almost certainly carefully attending to each player's load management. But if Arteta can be a little clever with how he deploys players in-game, rely on his squad depth, and rotate so he preserves our most important players for the most critical moments in the season, then I'm sure, at the end of all this, Arsenal can be there, hoisting something big and shiny.